Thanks for joining us today on the Big Blue Podcast. I'm Greg Stone, Provost of the Metro Campus, here with Dr. Lee Goodson, President of Tulsa Community College. Hello, Dr. Goodson.
How you doing, Dr.
I'm
Stone?
well. How are you?
Yeah, great.
Good. And we are here with one of my ATE colleagues from the class of '06, a big class that year. Professor Jennifer Neefsey is here, who's been championing OpenStax, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, Jennifer, thanks for coming over.
Thanks for inviting me.
Sure. I know you've been busy with undergrad research conference the last couple of days. Things seem to be going well with that.
Yes, they do. There are professors from all over the country. One of the people in a lab group near me traveled from Wyoming to be here.
Oh, that's
so
great.
It's nice to have that national level training here at TCC.
Absolutely. But we could talk about undergrad research, which is great, but we're going to talk about OpenStax today. Hopefully by now, a lot of college employees have heard of OpenStax, but there is probably a chance to get into it in a little more detail. I know you've made a lot of presentations, you've presented to the Board of Regents, but maybe let's just start by talking about what is OpenStax and how did you get involved with it and bring it to the college?
Sure. OpenStax is a nonprofit initiative housed at Rice University. And it was started back in 1999 by an electrical engineering professor at Rice. And he saw the issue that his students face with trying to pay for textbooks, especially engineering books, extremely expensive. And so he started trying to consolidate his resources and make them freely available for his students. And over time, that has morphed into what is now OpenStax. I became involved when I saw an ad in a biology teacher's journal that said, free college textbooks for your students? No, it's not too good to be true. So immediately I thought, well, anything like that is too good to be true. But then I saw the Rice Owl logo, and I thought, if that has the Rice logo on it, there's got to be a lot of quality involved, so I need to check into this. And that led to me talking to the OpenStax staff at a National Biology Teachers Conference and learning more about the books and seeing how they'd progressed and improved over time and deciding to give them a try in my classes. And the great thing about them is that they are free for students to download, free for students to access via the web, and if students want a printed version, an actual hard paper copy, which they could then resell, they range in price from $26 to $58. So low cost.
What a great
Very
deal.
low cost.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
really great deal for students. So if you haven't seen an OpenStax textbook, you've presented to the board before, as Greg said, and they look a little bit different. And the material is different than your traditional textbook. Tell us about that and how are students responding to that?
You're right. I would say that when you look at the OpenStax books, they seem a little plain. Most of us are used to textbooks with a lovely image on the front that's enticing and draws you in, but OpenStax books are solid colored, usually a bright color, orange, yellow, green, and some of them are gray now, but the rest of them have all been bright colored, plain white lettering on the front with the name of the book. And a lot of that is because the graphics are the most expensive part of the textbook process. So for that beautiful photo of an owl that might be on the cover of a textbook, someone had to be paid for having taken that photo and photoshopped it and edited it and royalties and on and on. So they skip all of that. All of the graphics in an OpenStax book will have come from an open source, non-copyrighted source. So something on the web that has not been copyrighted, something that the owner or the creator has made freely available. And so when you look inside the books, I think there are a lot of elements that are the same as a regular book. Chapters, paragraphs, section headings, end of chapter questions, but the graphics are definitely simpler. They're not as robust, and the printing uses a fewer colors, but again, that helps keep the cost down.
You actually applied for a grant, right? I mean, we couldn't just start using OpenStax necessarily, although it's free material on the web, but there was an additional component that you actually applied for on behalf of the college. Talk to us about what that component was and what that process involved.
Sure. Actually, you can just start using OpenStax books. They're free and available to anyone on the web. So if anyone is listening and you have a child, a neighbor, a grandchild, a friend, whatever, who wants to look at the books, anyone in the world can have full access to any of the 27 OpenStax books, just for your own edification, or if it might work in a class as a substitute, or maybe you have an OpenStax professor who's picked that book. So anyone can access them. But the program that I applied for was the Institutional Partner Program, and that helped provide support for TCC to really expand the use of OpenStax. I wanted to guinea pig it first to make sure that it worked as advertised and that my students responded positively to it and that I didn't see any change in the overall performance of my classes before I publicized it very much. And when I found that my students loved it, I mean, who wouldn't love a free book?
Right.
Hello, day one of class, here's the syllabus. Your book can be free if you're okay with an ebook or a download. That was great. I didn't see a difference in my students' performance. I didn't see it go up. I didn't see it go down. I didn't see a change. But to not see a change and have a free book, to me, that's a win. Then I started publicizing it to my colleagues. And the Institutional Partner Program gave us strategic planning through OpenStax, tied into TCC's strategic plan. I spent hours and hours going over TCC's strategic plan and how that could fit with the goals that OpenStax would set for us. We had monthly phone calls with a cohort of the other schools in the Institutional Partner Program. I had one-on-one planning strategy sessions with the OpenStax staff. I had to turn in monthly progress and accountability reports. And so it really was a great way to have a benchmark to know where we were going, and how we were going to get there, rather than just kind of muddling through it. So they provided excellent resources.
That's good. A lot of support around what they're proposing.
Yes, and you could learn best practices from other schools. So I could talk to another college and learn what they had done that worked, or maybe a college could say, oh, we tried this and it really didn't work. And so it could help me avoid some of those same pitfalls.
Professor Jennifer Neefsey is our guest today on the Big Blue Podcast, and we're talking about open educational resources and free and low-cost textbooks and classroom materials, which is something students desperately need. I know that just this past year, my son was a student, and each semester we spent between $400 and $500 on textbooks.
And I would say that's
That's pretty low.
That's
pretty low. Okay.
Yeah.
We have some engineering books and physics books that were well over $300
Just themselves.
for a new copy.
For a
yes.
new one. Give us an example or two of how this project, OpenStax, has directly impacted a student. Do you have a story or two? Oh,
I do. I brought a quote.
Nice.
Once a few semesters ago, OpenStax sent a survey to all of my students and said, how has this impacted you? And one of my students was selected to be part of their advertising campaign.
Oh, nice.
cool.
And so her quote was this. This was from a biology for non-majors class. It was an online class. And she said, being a single parent and not always having the resources to use financial aid, this was a great option, which I've never had before. It was pretty convenient and an easier way for me to study the text. This is the first semester I was ever able to get a textbook for free. I like being able to always have access to the book for future reference and even being able to teach my children biology. So
That's great.
wow,
I
that's
loved so
awesome.
many pieces of that it's a financial help, that it's an ongoing resource. She doesn't lose access to it at the end of the semester. She can have it forever. It's downloaded, and she's got web access. And then the part about helping her children learn biology, to me, was just icing on the cake.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
I kind of think back from courses that I taught, American Lit Survey or something, and I was trying to get students to not sell the book back because you could always refer to it later on, but, sometimes that little bit of financial incentive is really helpful for them. So this way it's not even an issue. You've always got access to it. That's really great. I know that over the last couple of years, excuse me, that you've really championed OpenStax at the college. And there are a number of full-time faculty members who have adopted using those resources. Can you give us a sense of how many people have sort of joined you in using OpenStax and where you sort of think this is going within the college?
Sure. Dr. Gibson calls me the Johnny Appleseed of OpenStax, trying to spread the seeds and seeing where they'll take root. And through the Institutional Partner Program, the support that I've received there, we were able to have 53 faculty members, full-time and part-time, adopt OpenStax books.
Wow.
That's quite a few.
It is.
That's more
It
than
is.
That's
That's
more than I thought.
thought, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, well, it's more than all of us thought. Honestly, it's
Wow.
been really successful. So 53 unique adopters. And of those 53, some of us, like myself, I use 3 different OpenStax books. I have biology for majors,
Oh.
biology for non-majors, and human physiology. But for that count, I just counted each person as a single
Even
adopter.
better.
Yes. So
Yeah,
really,
even
you
better.
could count and extend that number a little bit more. We're going to be having OpenStax books used in 15 different courses ranging from psychology, U.S. history, political science, anatomy, physiology, chemistry, physics, biologies. So lots of courses throughout the college starting in the summer and then more so in the fall. And it will be a total of 105 sections using OpenStax books. So we should see just over 2,500 students impacted for fall, and we expect the same number for spring.
So
Great.
in terms of like a dollar amount savings, do you have an idea of what that cost savings is based on
You
those
can
numbers?
calculate it a couple of ways. I stick with the OpenStax method of calculation. They've developed an algorithm that takes into account the fact that not everybody is going to buy a new book. Some students are going to do without a book. Some students will buy used. Some students will just use the one in the library or whatever. So they estimate $100 per book is a fair number to use. So using that number, it'll be over $500,000 savings this next academic year
Wow.
for
That's
TCC
awesome.
students.
That's really great.
That is
It is,
great
and
news for
the
our
college
students.
has had very little cost. They've supported me, which is great, and Dr. Gibson has supported purchase of faculty copies of the books. But it's a fabulous return on investment. The other key piece I want to throw into that I feel like was a big linchpin in us being able to go from just having one or two of us using to 53 was the support of the TCC Foundation. They set up a grant program that provided $500 incentive grants for faculty members to switch to an OpenStax book. That really generated a lot of interest and conversation and collegial discussions, and it's led to us having entire disciplines switch, like physics completely switched. Most of the
That's great.
chemistries.
And what did they have to do for that 500? Was that just a stipend to
It was.
kind of help them adjust their curriculum? Not change the curriculum, but adjust it to be accessible with the OpenStax textbook?
Yes, and to me, the justification for that was that OpenStax does not have the robust ancillaries that the traditional publisher books provide. If a professor switches to a different publisher's book, typically they're handed a very robust test bank, pre-made PowerPoints, lots of ancillaries. With OpenStax,
You're
there
on
is
your
a
own.
very limited test bank. There are some basic PowerPoint slides, but it does definitely take a time investment on the part of that professor to beef those up, to make it their own, and to maybe pull resources that they would
So
need
it's a
to
work
supplement
stipend.
that. It is.
Okay.
It is.
Got it.
But I feel like that support really allowed us to have the huge growth that we experienced this year.
If a faculty member is interested in adopting OpenStax as their classroom materials, what would their next step be? Do they contact you?
Sure. Contacting
Okay.
me would be great. I would be happy to talk them through the process, or if there are any current OpenStax adopters that need anything. Hopefully they know by now they can contact me, but I'm always happy to help anyone who's just curious, whether you're a professor or not. You could just take a look at www.openstax, which is OPENSTAX.org, click subjects, and then look at a book that's interesting to you.
Wow. Jennifer, we only just have a couple of minutes left, but we want to ask you the question we always ask all of our guests, which is if you could go back in time and give some advice to your 18-year-old self, what would that advice be?
Probably have more fun.
We hear that a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be open to life's twists and turns. I never thought I would be a college professor. That was never on my radar. But be open to where life will take you, and get a PhD. That would be my
That
other.
helps.
Oh, I like that answer.
I
Yeah.
stopped at a master's, and I really wish I wouldn't have.
It's never too late.
Well, probably not. We'll see.
It's not too late. It's not too late. Well, thank you for being here. You've been listening to the Big Blue Podcast. We want to thank our guest, Jennifer Neefsey. We really appreciate all the information you gave us about OpenStax. It's an exciting project. So thank you for spending time with us today. And we want to thank you for listening. Remember, you can catch the Big Blue Podcast each week in the week at TCC and on the Creativity Channel at YouTube. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Over and out.
Thanks, Jennifer.